you have more than your grandparents ever dreamed of. More information, more entertainment, more connection, more choice, more comfort. By virtually every material measure, you are living better than 99% of every human being who has ever walked this earth. You have access to knowledge that kings could not buy, communication tools that generals could not command, entertainment libraries that entire nations could not have assembled, and you still scroll at 2 in the morning, quietly convinced that something is missing. This is not an accident. It is not a character flaw. It is not a generational failing or a spiritual problem or evidence that modern life has made people ungrateful. It is the predictable, documented, engineered output of a system that was specifically designed to make you feel perpetually, productively insufficient. Because a person who feels enough does not scroll. A person who is satisfied does not click. A person who is content with what they have does not consume more. And the entire architecture of the attention economy depends on you never arriving at enough. This is the algorithm trap. And once you see how it was built, you cannot unsee it. To understand the trap, you first need to understand a psychological phenomenon that predates the algorithm by decades: hedonic adaptation. Psychologists Shane Frederick and George Lowenstein at Carnegie Mellon University spent years documenting one of the most robust and least discussed features of human psychology: the extraordinary capacity of human beings to adapt to almost any change in circumstances, positive or negative, and return to roughly the same baseline level of satisfaction within a relatively short period of time. In plain English, you get the thing you wanted, you feel good, and then, within weeks or months, the good feeling fades and your baseline resets. The new car becomes the regular car. The promotion becomes the expected salary. The new apartment becomes just where you live. This is not pessimism. It is biology. The human brain was not designed to sustain elevated satisfaction for extended periods. It was designed to detect change, to notice new threats and new opportunities. And chronic satisfaction is the enemy of vigilance. A completely satisfied animal is a vulnerable animal. Hedonic adaptation was useful for your ancestors. It kept them motivated, alert, always scanning for the next improvement. But it creates a specific vulnerability in the modern world. If your environment is constantly presenting you with new comparisons, new things to want, new standards to fall short of, new idealized versions of life you could be living, the adaptation treadmill never stops. And that is exactly what the algorithm is designed to provide. In 1949, economist James Dusenberry at Harvard University proposed what he called the relative income hypothesis, the idea that human beings measure their economic satisfaction not against an absolute standard, but relative to those around them. It is not what you have that determines how you feel. It is what you have compared to your reference group. Dusenberry's insight was built for the world of mid-century America, where your reference group was largely limited to your neighborhood, your workplace, your immediate social circle. People you knew, people whose circumstances were roughly visible to you in full, their struggles as visible as their successes. Social media destroyed that limit entirely. Now your reference group is global, curated, and algorithmically optimized to surface the most comparison-inducing content your behavioral profile suggests you are most susceptible to. The algorithm does not show you average lives. It shows you exceptional lives, the most photogenic moments, the most impressive achievements, the most aspirational versions of every life category you care about. Because exceptional content generates more engagement than ordinary content. And your brain, still running Dusenberry's relative income hypothesis on hardware calibrated for a reference group of 150 people, tries to evaluate itself against a curated highlight reel of millions. The result is a chronic, low-grade sense of inadequacy that has no resolution. Because the bar is always moving. The algorithm ensures it is always moving. Every time you adapt to one standard, the feed surfaces another. Every time you reach one benchmark, 10 more appear. The treadmill is infinite because the content is infinite. But the algorithm does something even more specific than exploit social comparison. It exploits something psychologists call the scarcity mindset. Researcher Sendhil Mullainathan at Harvard University and economist Eldar Shafir at Princeton University spent years studying how the experience of scarcity, not just material scarcity, but perceived scarcity of any resource, affects cognitive function and decision-making. Their research, summarized in their book Scarcity, Why Having Too Little Means So Much, found that the experience of scarcity captures attention, narrows focus, and creates a specific cognitive state that makes people worse at long-term planning, more impulsive, more susceptible to immediate gratification. In plain English, when you feel like you are lacking something, time, money, social approval, status, beauty, success, your brain goes into a specific mode that makes you worse at thinking clearly about your actual situation and more responsive to anything that seems to address the lack. Now consider what the algorithm delivers: an endless stream of content calibrated to trigger the precise perception of scarcity most relevant to your behavioral profile. You feel like you are missing out on experiences, on social connection, on physical appearance, on professional achievement, on knowledge, on the version of your life that everyone else seems to be living. Each piece of content addresses a lack, or creates one, and the response to perceived scarcity, as Mullainathan and Shafir documented, is increased attentional capture. You pay more attention to the thing you feel you lack, which means you engage more with the content that triggered the scarcity feeling, which generates more behavioral data about your vulnerabilities, which the algorithm uses to serve more precisely targeted scarcity content. This is the trap, not a metaphor. A documented psychological mechanism systematically exploited for commercial gain. There is a moment, and you have probably experienced it, where you open an app feeling reasonably content and close it 20 minutes later feeling subtly worse. Not dramatically worse, not in a way you can point to. Just a vague, difficult-to-name dissatisfaction. A sense that your life is slightly smaller than it was before you opened the app. This is not accidental. Researcher Roy Baumeister at the University of Queensland has spent decades studying what he calls ego depletion, the measurable reduction in cognitive and emotional resources that follows sustained exposure to information requiring evaluation, comparison, or emotional processing. His research shows that the kind of constant, rapid, comparison-rich content consumption that social media provides is particularly depleting, not because any single piece of content is overwhelming, but because the cumulative cognitive load of continuous evaluation leaves you with less capacity for the kind of sustained, constructive thinking that produces genuine satisfaction. You open the app with a full tank. You close it running on fumes. And in that depleted state, the algorithm offers you the easiest possible next step. Scroll more. The solution to the depletion the app caused is more of the app. This is the structure of addiction, not in a metaphorical sense, but in the precise clinical sense that psychologist Anna Lemke at Stanford University School of Medicine describes in her research. A dopamine system dysregulated by continuous overstimulation, seeking relief in the same source that caused the dysregulation. Here is the counterintuitive part. The antidote to the algorithm trap is not digital abstinence. It is not logging off, deleting apps, or retreating from the digital world. That is, for most people, neither practical nor sufficient. The antidote is something older, simpler, and much more difficult. The deliberate cultivation of what psychologist Martin Seligman at the University of Pennsylvania calls authentic positive emotion, satisfaction that arises not from comparison or acquisition, but from genuine engagement with meaningful activity. Seligman's research on well-being, summarized in his PERMA model, identifies 5 elements that contribute to lasting human flourishing: positive emotion, engagement, relationships, meaning, and accomplishment. Critically, none of these 5 elements are generated by consuming content. All of them require active participation in the world, doing things, building things, connecting with specific people, contributing to something beyond yourself. The algorithm cannot provide PERMA. It can simulate the feeling of connection without the substance. It can simulate the feeling of accomplishment through likes and followers without the depth. It can simulate positive emotion through entertainment without the lasting residue. The gap between simulation and substance is where the not enough lives. And the only way across that gap is deliberate investment in the activities that generate the real thing, however inconvenient, however difficult, however much slower than scrolling. The divide forming in the world right now runs directly through this understanding. On one side, people who have not yet seen the trap, who experience the chronic not enough as a personal failing, a sign that they are somehow inadequate, that they need more, better, different, who respond to the feeling by consuming more of the thing that created it, who live inside the algorithm's manufactured scarcity without knowing that the scarcity was manufactured. On the other side, people who have recognized the mechanism, who understand that the feeling of not enough is not a signal from reality. It is an engineered output of a system that profits from their dissatisfaction, who can look at the feeling, name its origin, and choose a different response. That choice, between inhabiting the trap and recognizing it, is not made once. It is made continuously, every time you reach for your phone in a moment of quiet, every time you open a feed in response to a vague sense of restlessness, every time you compare your ordinary Tuesday afternoon to someone else's curated highlight reel. Organizations like Pinnacle AI Solutions work at exactly this intersection, helping individuals understand not just the capabilities of AI systems, but the psychological mechanisms those systems exploit, so that the choice between the trap and the exit can be made with genuine awareness rather than unconscious compliance. You have more than your grandparents ever dreamed of, and you still scroll at 2 in the morning, quietly convinced that something is missing. The missing thing is not in the feed. It has never been in the feed. The feed was designed to ensure you believe it is, because a person who finds what they are looking for stops looking. And stopping looking is the one thing the algorithm cannot afford. The not enough is not yours. You did not arrive at it through reflection. You were delivered to it by a system that needed you there. The question is not whether you have enough. The question is whether you are willing to stop letting a machine answer that question for you.